Good day, everyone. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Good day, everyone. Like I promised, I wanted us to meet on Wednesday. Unfortunately, on Wednesday, I was having a meeting at the School of General Studies, so we couldn't meet. But I promise you guys that I will do it online and send the link to you so that you can watch it. Then, if there is any area of concern, any concern, we can discuss it maybe in our next class, inshallah. So, without much waste of time, let me just start the lecture. The lecture is about strategic management of multinational enterprises. Enterprises is one of the important lectures that we are going to have. We are dealing with international business. So, in international business, strategic, positioning of a particular business is very important because even domestic business, it needs someone to be strategic and have a lot of plans to be able to scale to the dynamism and complexity of the competition and the market. Now we are talking about international market environment, international business environment. So strategic management is going to be very important. So introduction. Uh, Introduction. Strategic management of multinational enterprise involves planning and executing strategy across multiple countries to achieve competitive advantage while dealing with diverse economic, cultural, and regulatory environment. It's about, because you are going to be dealing with a number of countries and each country with distinct, cultural, economic, and regulatory environment. So one needs to strategize, make a lot of plans to be able to scale to. Globalization has increased opportunities and competition, requiring multinational enterprises to balance global efficiency with local responsibilities, make effective market entry decisions, and coordinate activities across international markets. Because of globalization, the world are coming together to become one, and there are a lot of, and that, globalization, has opened up a lot of opportunities. People who were not in international business now they find it easier to go into international business. And there are a lot of competition, domestic and international, which requiring, national companies or multinational enterprises to strike a balance between standardization and adaptation and to strategize or choose or select the best entry strategy to use based on their result, based on the resources and maybe the need for ownership, control, and what have you. Okay, so all these, are going to be discussed within this lecture for William. Okay, so, so let us start with the conceptual definitions. Multinational enterprise is an organization that engages in foreign direct investment and owns or control value-adding activities, production, marketing, research, and development in multiple countries. So even though from our previous lectures we have discussed what is multinational enterprises, but still we need to understand what really is multinational enterprises. Multinational enterprises are organizations, very big corporations that are in many countries that make heavy investment in terms of companies, productions and what have you. They mostly make a foreign direct investment. They normally, owns 100% ownership of companies in a number of countries. They have significant marketing and research, and development activities. So M&E differ from exporter in that they establish long-term operational presence abroad. Unlike exporters, they manufacture in their home country and take it to foreign markets. Unlike exporters, the MNEs, they have presence in whatever country they are targeting. They produce in those countries and sell in those countries and in other countries. So they establish long-term operational presence abroad, exercise managerial control over foreign operations, integrate activities across border into exercise managerial control over foreign operations, and integrate activities across border in coordinated global manner. So it's all about, large company managing number of operations in number of countries. So key characteristics of multinational enterprises: number one, geographical dispersion. They have presence in number of countries and regions of the world, and internalized transactions. Most, unlike in the exporting, where most of the transaction happens in the market, this one happens from the company because they already have presence in whatever country they are doing business in. And then complex government structure. It's a multinational, it's a large company, so they deal with government, like federal government of each and every country. So they have a complex governance structure because they manage, number of subsidiaries or branches across number of countries. So, and then global resource orchestration, allocation of capital, talent, and technology internationally. And then exposure to institutional diversity, different legal system, cultural and economic distance, and what have you across number of countries. Because they deal with number of countries, they are in Nigeria, they are in Egypt. The legal system, the political system, and so many other systems within the country are quite different. So they deal with this kind of diversity, institutional diversity. And then types of international enterprises. We have horizontal M&Es. Horizontal M&Es replicate the same core business activity in multiple countries. These are type of multinational companies that provide similar services across number of countries. This help them to manage costs by providing standardized product across number of countries. Unlike in vertical M&Es, where they take into consideration the local differences among people in terms of their taste and culture. So they adapt their products to suit the local taste and culture. That, entail additional costs. In horizontal, there is no such additional cost. So it's much cheaper to operate horizontal ties than to operate other ties. For example, McDonald's operates similar restaurants worldwide with largely standardized menus and processes. If you check McDonald's across number of countries, they have the same menu, the same type of food. Even though there are some changes in some countries, for example, in India, because their culture and what have you, forbid them from partaking in beef. So McDonald's, slightly, modify. And likewise in Nigeria, McDonald's, accommodates some local dishes into their menus. So, and then the next type is vertical M&Es. Vertical M&Es divide their value chain into stages and locate each stage in different countries based on cost and efficiency advantage. In horizontal M&Es, they carry out their activities in number of countries, the same activities, multiple countries. But in vertical M&Es, they divide their operations into number of stages. Like for example, Samsung, they make a phones, so they may try to produce chips in China, maybe the screen in India. You understand, based on the country's cost and efficiency, so that it will result in a economy of scale and cost reductions in productions. So vertical element is, they have this. There are some that are really into this. Vertical M&Es divide their value chain into stages and locate each stage in different countries based on cost and efficiency advantages. Example, Nike design product in the US but manufacture in countries like Vietnam or Indonesia because of cheap labor and things like that. So designing the idea and so many other R&D, it's done in US, but the manufacturing is done in countries where they have cheap labor and minimal, political distances issues. So vertical M.N.Es. And then conglomerate M.N.Es. Conglomerate M.N.Es. Conglomerate M.N.Es multiple or related industry across different countries, combining diversification with internalization. Uh, this type of multinational enterprises, they are into number of things in different countries around the world. Like for example, Samsung, they are into electronics, into shipbuilding, construction, and financial services. So this type of MNEs, operate in multiple correlated industry across different countries. You understand? So that makes them conglomerate, going into number of things. Well, so each type of this, is each one of these is a type of MNEs that we find in most of the countries. Then strategic challenges faced by MNEs. Global integration versus local responsiveness dilemma. Sometimes these multinational enterprises, face challenge of uh, standardization or adaptation, based on the differences in culture, taste, religion, and what have you. So it's one of the serious challenge that, because standardization, saves companies cost. If company is going to standardize, there will be no much cost, and adaptation, result in so much cost. So most company, prefer to standardize their product than adapt based on the local context. But there should be a trade-off between the cost and the market share. If you refuse to adapt your product, you may lose significant, market in number of countries, because some customers, some consumers in some countries, may not be factored in the productions. You understand? So as such, they may not buy the product. So taking into cognizance this local taste and passion may result in a large market share or successful, marketing activities in the international market. So there is this challenge, deciding whether to standardize or adapt your product. And then coordination costs, managing communication, control across borders. Most of these multinational enterprises, they have number of companies across number of countries, and they have their head office in a particular home country. So coordinating activities among these is very challenging, cost, intensive, and so many other issues. And then political and regulatory risks, trade barriers, expropriation policies, political changes, and what have you. All these are some of the challenge, most of these MNEs, face in international business. And then cultural distances, differences in language. You may be operating in Nigeria and China and India. These are three quite different countries, and each country has its unique way of communication and way of doing business. So it will be very challenging. This cultural distances, is posing a lot of challenge, and it entails a lot of cost, because most company will have to recruit from the locals, indigenous people, who understand the local language and business terrain. You understand? So it's a challenge. And then knowledge transfer. Difficulty in transferring tacit knowledge across units. The head office or the home country where the technology, where the idea can come from, you find it very difficult to transfer this knowledge into other countries. Maybe based because of so many other issues like lack of trust, like piracy, and so many other things. So it's very difficult to transfer this kind of knowledge into other this country, and it also, entails a lot of cost to the company. So these are some of the challenge, MNEs, face in international business. And then theoretical foundation of NME strategy. Why MNE? There are some theories that will try to explain the reason why. If you could remember one of our lectures, we talk about these theories, some of these theories. So it's not going to be a new thing to you guys. So electric paradigm or LI framework. If you could remember, we talk about this theory where we talk about the ownership, location, and internalization. This theory is trying to justify why MNEs, why the need for multinational enterprises, why did they emerge in international business. This theory is trying to tell us that the reason why is because sometimes the ownership of some specific asset may make someone to go into MNE to become MNE. Like for example, a brand name. Apple company, is a highly tech, company that has this advantage. They have a brand name, successful brand name that has a goodwill reputation in the mind of all customers. So that gives them an advantage. You understand technology, managerial expertise, and then location, country-specific advantage. And sometimes enemies, target a country where there are some resources that will make them to make a lot of money. Like for example, limestone for cement. This can attract number of enemies into cement business in Nigeria and some other countries that have limestone. You understand? Likewise, oil, uranium, and so many other resources, natural resources, labor cost, market size. All these are factors that may attract, MNEs into a country. And then internalization, benefit of operating within a particular country rather than outsourcing. Benefit of controlling operation internally rather than outsourcing. If, for example, in Nigeria, Google can operate, profitably than in America or China or Niger or Kenya, they may come to Nigeria and start doing their operation. And this is the reason why sometimes you may find an American company, having domicile its activities in China, because there are so many advantages there. Cheap labor, less, institutional, interference, if not because of the trade wars that is happening between US and China. Before, there was not much issue. You find number of companies, US companies in China. Almost most of the companies are in China. But because of the trade wars, that started between China and US now, most of the companies are going into India, Vietnam, Indonesia, and some other countries. So this based on this theory. And then we have transaction cost theory. Hence, internalize operation to minimize opportunism. Opportunism is like lack of trust or cheating or undue advantage that someone may take for the business. Lack of trust or honesty, integrity, something like that. So may make a business, to internalize their operation in a particular countries or somewhere else. And then uncertainty. Sometimes if there are some uncertainty in terms of political, in terms of violence and what have you, understand. So you may, and then contract enforcement cost. And sometimes if there is, if maybe in a particular country, they have serious challenge in terms of contract enforcement. Like for example, in Nigeria, you will have to bribe your way to get things, done or to achieve your business, objectives. Spend a lot of extra money to do that, and it takes time. All this kind of thing may discourage people from coming to Nigeria and may consider other countries. And then there's another one, resource-based view theory, which try to emphasize the presence of some resources that make NME to be relevant in international market. For example, the theory emphasize competitive advantage from these 4 areas. Resources. When a company has a valuable resources that is so valuable that it is unique to the company. Like for example, Apple brand name, Samsung, Honda, Toyota, they have this brand name that is so unique to them. that no company can imitate or do something like that. So valuable, when you have this valuable something, it makes you stronger and it allows you to enter a number of countries to become multinational enterprises. And the reliability of your resources. If you have a resources that is so unique, you can't find it anywhere. You are the sole exclusive owner of that resources, or you have exclusive right or access to this kind of resources, then you may have this advantage. And then inimitable, a resources that cannot be imitated, that cannot be copied or by somebody else. You are the only one who has this kind of resources, then you can be a multinational enterprises. And are not substitutable resources that cannot be substituted. So, these resources, when you have this competitive advantage, then you are likely going to become multinational enterprises based on this theory. And then we have another theory, institutional theory. Based on institutional theories, M&E must adapt to formal institutions, informal institutions. In number of countries, we have formal institutions that are established by government to control and take care of international business activities. Example of formal institutions, laws, legal system, tax policies, trade regulations, tariff quotas, labor laws and employment standards, property right and contract enforcement. Why they matter? Determining the cost of doing business. When you have a robust, good legal system, then you are likely not be paying much or losing money in piracy, in theft, and so many other things. So determining the cost of doing business, influence entry mode decision, maybe government regulations. Government may restrict, production in some areas. For example, in number of countries, they restrict agribusiness, from foreigners. Some, media companies like television and what have you, they don't allow foreigners to manage them in their countries. So that, will means someone can go into strategic partnership, can go into, something like strategic partnership as a mode of entry instead of, foreign direct investment. You have to partner with the local company to invest in them so that you wait. So depending on these formal institutions, so and then there is informal institutions by culture, norms, religion, and what have you. Religion or culture, controls like every aspect of our lives, our consumption patterns, what we buy and sell, all is controlled by our culture. So sometimes, informally culture can control, can control people's, something, and that will, tell us or allow, multinational enterprises to enter a country or successfully operate in a number of countries. So then strategic management in multinational enterprises. Strategic management in multinational enterprises. Strategic management in multinational enterprises involves cross-border strategy, formulation, implementation, and control aimed at achieving sustainable competitive advantage. There are some strategy that needs to be developed in order for a company to achieve success in international, like multinational enterprise to achieve success in international business. For example, we have market selections. In market selection, care must be taken. Some factors needs to be considered to be able to target the right market international business. For example, market attractiveness. Before you consider market for international operations as M&E, you have to make sure the market is attractive. And what makes a market attractive is size and growth potential. If the market is so large, meaning the purchasing power, there are a number of people who are willing to buy your products, you understand, then that one market is attractive. And especially if it has a potential to grow in the future. Maybe there is a potential or some indicators that there is likely going to be increase in income level, increase in median incomes, segment of the society, then that would, tell you that the market is likely going to grow. Or maybe there are policies that would try to discourage other companies from entering these areas, then the market is likely going to grow because you will be the only or few sellers, players in that market. Competitive intensity. If there is not much competition, then the market is likely going to be highly attractive. You understand? Institutional stability, like political stability, can make market very attractive and go into. And then you need to also decide on entry mode strategy. We are going to talk about this, balancing control versus risks. In most of the entry mode we are going to talk about, each one, has its, advantage and disadvantage. For example, exporting. Exporting, has advantage of less cost, it's less costly, but there is disadvantage of lack of control, lack of, there is very little return on investment because you're not likely going to be making a lot of money if you are going for other entry mode like partnerships, strategic partnership or franchising or even foreign direct investment. So you need to balance control versus risk and then resource commitment versus flexibility. All these, will determine the kind of entry mode you select. We are going to talk about all this later. And then global configuration of activities, where to locate your production facility, maybe based on cost and efficiency. Most companies, they locate their production units in countries where the cost is cheap level. There is less political instability and is highly, efficient to produce in those countries. Research and development is mostly, located in the home country where the knowledge, the technology is initiated. And then marketing. Marketing is almost everywhere. Wherever you have a presence, then the marketing activity must happen there. Then coordination mechanism, centralization versus decentralization. Centralization is a process where you coordinate your business activities, from the head office, headquarter. Every activities of the subsidiary in any country must be agreed upon by the headquarter. And then there is decentralization where you give every subsidiary its independence, right to decide to do whatever it feels is okay in that very country. You understand? And then formal control versus socialization is another area. And then the next topic is international market entry strategy. So having, consider all the factors we have talked about, then the next activity or effort is to decide which mode of entry are you going to utilize. There are a number of entry modes open to multinational enterprises. For example, there is exporting. Exporting is an international entry strategy where firms sell products produced in their home country to foreign markets. And this exporting, is divided into direct exporting, where the firms sell directly to international customers without intermediaries. This provides greater control and is often used by experienced firms or those dealing with specialized or luxury products. Direct is when you sell directly to the customer in a number of countries. Maybe you have a subsidiary there, or maybe you have a warehouse where or it may be like, for example, ShopRite. You can have a mall or maybe supermarket in a particular country where you'll be moving your goods from home country to that country and sell those countries. So you sell directly to the customers. And then there's indirect exporting. The firm uses intermediaries such as agents or distributors. This is common for firms new to international markets, as intermediaries provide market knowledge and reduce entry complexity. Although indirect exporting involves paying commissions, it can still yield stronger returns due to expertise and local insight of the agent. The indirect exporting, has advantage because in direct, you may not have the knowledge of the complexity of the market, local market there. But when you are going to work with some agent or maybe local people, because they have better knowledge of their country and people, culture, and what have you, they can easily sell than if you are going into direct exporting. So that indirect exporting, has this advantage, but it has additional cost of commission to the agent and all these people that are going to help you. Then the next one is licensing. Licensing is an entry strategy where a firm grants another company the right to use, produce, or sell its product or intellectual property. You understand? Like, for example, LG company. If you go to Sabangari Kano now, you will find some very cheap LG DVD that you can use for a month, a week. It will just spoil up. Most of these LG DVDs are not, or radio or home theaters are not made by the original LG company. They mostly license them to local people to produce because the LG is interested in the market, this low income market, but they don't have the like maybe the commitment to be in that market. So they license the product to this kind of people. So it's one of the entry, strategy for multinational enterprises. If multinational enterprises, considers a particular market in a particular country, but due to one reason or the other, they cannot be there in the country. So they can license some of their products so that a company there can produce and sell under their brand name so that they will be paying what is called royalty. It is often used when the product has strong market demand. The licensee has access to large or established market. This approach allows firms to expand internationally with low investment and risks, while leveraging the market reach of the partner. So here's how it works. You own a company in Nigeria that sells coffee flavor popcorn. It's an example. You are sure that your product will be a big hit in Japan, but you don't have the resources to set up a factory or sales office in that country. You can make the popcorn here and ship it to Japan because it will get stale during shipping in the water. So you enter into license agreement with a Japanese company that allows your licensee to manufacture coffee flavor popcorn using your special process and to sell it in Japan under your brand name. In exchange, the Japanese licensee will pay you a royalty fee. This is how it works. You understand? Then the next one is franchising. Franchising is different from licensing in the sense that in licensing, you only allow a particular company in another country to produce some of your products. But in franchising, you allow someone to use your business model as if you are the one operating there. Like, for example, under a license agreement, you may find Okonko Electronics and Co. company producing LG TV or LG DVD. But under franchising, you will see LG, even though it may not be owned by LG, but you will see LG. Just like the Albek restaurant we have in Kano. This restaurant we have in Kano, it's owned by somebody, a Kano indigent. You understand? Going into under franchise with Albek Saudi Arabia. Most of the food chains we have in Nigeria, Mr. Biggs and what have you, they are mostly under franchising. If you go around, you will see a lot of provider yogurt all over the places. All this, some of these are under franchising agreement. They are not owned by the original provider company. You understand? So this is how it normally happens, and this is how it is different from licensing. So it's an entry strategy where a firm allows individual or group to operate business units under its brand in exchange for a fee. It enables international expansion with limited direct involvement, especially for firms with strong brand recognition. Franchising allows a company to generate profit while relying on local operators to manage day-to-day operations. It's a type of market entry strategy where a lay people or someone who has no idea of how franchising works may not even differentiate. So that, directly or indirectly is giving you an opportunity to be in a particular country. So franchising is a natural form of global expansion for companies that operate domestically according to a franchise model, including restaurant chains such as Albek, Mr. Biggs, McDonald's, and Kentucky Fried Chicken, and hotel chains such as Holiday Inn and Best Western, and so many others. The next one is joint ventures. Joint ventures are partnerships where two or more firms collaborate to enter international market, sharing resources, risks, and operations. They can generate greater revenue than individual firms due to combined capabilities, but may face challenges such as unequal involvement or control, which require clear agreement and governance to manage effectively. Joint venture is like partnership. We know what is partnership when two or more companies, come together to carry out their business activities under their names. So it also happens in international business by multinational enterprises, where a company in Nigeria can partner with a company in Cameroon to go into international business. So the company in Nigeria is indirectly, having a presence in Cameroon by partnering with the local company in Cameroon. This partnership, a joint venture, has a lot of advantages. One of it is that the local partner, knows the nature of the country and everything. And in terms of government policies and what have you, like deterrent policies, that is not going to be affected. It can be taken care of because a Nigerian partner may not have a presence there. It's under partnership, so government may not even understand it. So it has a lot of advantage. And then there is wholly owned subsidiaries, where a company or international company or multinational enterprise has a wholly owned subsidiary in a particular country. It normally takes two types. Greenfield investment is a subsidiary where it started from the scratch. It starts from the scratch. Company, discover an idea in a country, opportunity in a country, establish the business, market it, and then grow it. And then acquisition, or a company, M&E, identify a company in a particular country of interest and try to acquire the company and use it for their international business activity. Now, strategic trade-off, high control versus high cost and risks. In wholly subsidiary, going into greenfield or acquisition, depends on some trade-offs. If you want high control, then you may go for greenfield investment. You understand? And then if you're going for greenfield, then it is high cost and there is high level of risk. Well, likewise, acquisition. Acquisition also has some risk element because there was a research that says or that found that about 60% of most of the acquisitions globally, have failed to achieve their intended, purpose, success. So there are a lot of inherent risks in acquisitions. And then greenfield investment involve establishing a new operation abroad by acquiring land, building facilities, and hiring local staff. While they require high capital investment, carry significant risks, they provide full control and can help firms meet local regulatory requirements. This strategy is typically suited to large established companies. Then an acquisition is a transaction in which a firm gains control of another by purchasing its stock, exchanging the stock for its own, or in the case of private firm, paying the owners a purchase price. In our increasingly flat world, cross-border acquisitions have risen dramatically. In recent years, cross-border acquisitions have made up over 60% of all acquisitions completed worldwide. We have talked about acquisition. Then determinant of entry mode choice. So what are the factors that will determine what entry mode you select to enter a particular country? So it's going to depend on any of these factors we are going to talk about. For example, cultural distance. If there is a serious difference in terms of culture between maybe the home country and the target country, there is likely going to be a consideration of what kind of mode of entry should one adopt. Maybe if the cultural distance is so wide, someone may consider partnership. You understand? Because in partnership, we are going to rely on the local partner who will make all the marketing and selling activities there. So you may take care of the cultural distances. But if the cultural distance is very low, like someone going into Niger Republic, Then you can go into exporting, go into greenfield investment, or even FDI investment, acquisition, and what have you. And then country risks, level of risks, will also determine what mode of entry you select for your M&E operation. And then industry characteristics, the nature of the industry. Is it like healthcare, the security, telecommunications, oil and gas, depending on the nature, the resources availability of the country. And then firm capabilities, it's another entry mode. And then speed of entry in terms of the entry requirement, political, bureaucratic, policies and what have you. Well, that will also determine what entry mode you select. So next is global multinational, multi-domestic and transnational strategy. There are three strategies that MNEs normally use in managing their operations, globally. MNEs adopt international strategy to manage their global operation effectively. The three main strategies are multi-domestic strategy, which focuses on local responsiveness. Global strategy emphasizes efficiency and standardization, and transnational strategy, which combines efficiency with local adaptation. So we are going to look at these ones. The first one is multi-domestic strategy. Multi-domestic strategy prioritizes local responsiveness over global efficiency, adapting product or service to meet the specific preferences and cultural requirements of each market. Under this strategy, MNE, standardize their products across number of countries. You understand? This is normally done in order to save costs and let the company be highly efficient in operations. Example include MTB, customized programming for different countries. Hence, modify ketchup recipe in India to exclude garlic and onion. Okay, sorry, it's not standardized. It's a strategy that try to consider local tastes and preferences of a country of their interest. So if a country is coming to Nigeria, they may consider in a particular region in Nigeria, like northern region, they may consider our culture, our religion, and all of this to see how they can modify their products so that it will gain massive acceptance in northern Nigeria. Just like these examples, MTB, customized programming for different countries. And then hence the company that produces ketchup, modify their ketchup recipe in India to exclude garlic and onions. Based on the country, specifications and culture. This strategy allows them to better satisfy local consumer need while sacrificing some economy of scale. It's a kind of a trade-off. If you are going to adapt your product to local culture taste, then you are likely going to miss out on the economy of scale, the advantage associated with the economy of scale. That is cost saving. You understand? So, but you also need to consider the market share. If you fail to adapt your product, then somebody may adapt their product and they may capture the market there. So you just have to do it to sacrifice some of the cost profit you are likely going to get from standardization. So major component of developing multi-domestic strategy, major issues that you need to consider is number one, culture. Customize product as per local customer needs. Adapt organizational culture complying with domestic market regulations. So culture is very important in multi-domestic strategy. You have to make sure you adapt your offerings with the local culture so that it will gain massive acceptance. And then independent branches. Each branch, you may have two branches in Nigeria, maybe in the north, south, and west. So each branch is going to work independently based on the local nature of the region they are operating in. And then decentralization. You also need to decentralize your activities because you are not into standardization. Standardization is where you have a uniform policies from the main office across all the subsidiaries in a number of countries. But here, you are considering local factors. So you need to decentralize your activities by allowing every subsidiary or branch in a particular country to carry out their activities independently. Then the next one is global strategy. Global strategy emphasizes efficiency and cost reduction by offering largely standardized products. That is where standardization happens, or service across market with minimal local adaptation. Firms using this approach sacrifice responsiveness to local preferences in order to achieve economy of scale. Minor adjustments such as language changes may be made. This strategy is common in industry where customer preferences vary little, such as technology or component manufacturing. And then another strategy for M&E is global strategy, where company standardize their products in order to gain to achieve the economy of scale advantages. And the reason why company mostly go for this is they normally consider the type of the products. You understand? If, for example, most of the technology products are mostly not so different. Television is television, regardless of the brand or maker. Car is a car. You understand? Mobile phones is a mobile phone. Likewise, component part, like for example, the chips of mobile phone or cars, they are all chips. Like your computer chip, you will not even mind which chip your computer is having. Though there are some differences in the capacity of most of the chips, but you may not be worried so much about what type of a chip your computer is carrying. So with that, you can go for global, you can use global strategy where you standardize your product so that you enjoy, lower costs in your M&E operation. And then the last one is transnational strategy. A firm using transnational strategy seeks a middle ground between a multi-domestic strategy and a global strategy. Such firm tries to balance the desire for efficiency with the need to adjust to local preferences within various countries. Here, you take a middle ground. You don't standardize. You also not give significant attention to adaptation. You only slightly modify your products to accommodate some of the local differences in your target markets. For example, large fast food chains such as McDonald's and KFC rely on same brand names and same core menu items around the world, but they slightly make some adjustment. In India, for example, they adjust their menu. In Nigeria, for example, if you go to McDonald's, you see some of our even some of our local dishes there. So there is this standardization and adaptation at the same time in this strategy. So this firm makes some concession to local tastes too. In France, for example, wine can be purchased at McDonald's. This approach makes sense for McDonald's because wine is a central element of French diet. So based on the complexity or nature of the country, you can adapt your product to, even though it's standard product, it's the same product across most of the market in the world, but there are some slight changes or differences among them based on the taste and passion of the people in those countries. In international financial management, key component number one, foreign exchange management. Of course, you can't manage multinational enterprises without managing your international finance. And in international business, there are so many issues that relates to finance management, like foreign exchange, capital budgeting, training and development, currency conversion, and what have you. A lot of things are involved. So key component, involves number one, foreign exchange management. Exchange rate fluctuations affect profitability. In international business, you need to be mindful of how you manage your or you consider the fluctuation in foreign exchange. If you are going into a country where they have a very strong foreign exchange, a stronger currency than your own, then you're likely going to make a lot of profits because the prices you're going to charge there will be higher and you will gain a lot. But if you're going to a country where you have a stronger currency than them, then you are likely going to charge higher prices. So you have to, consider this and make sure you make some adjustment to make sure you make a lot of reasonable profit. Then hedging strategies, including forward contract, options, currency swaps, and what have you. And then capital budgeting. Evaluating international investment, but there are some challenges: political risks, currency volatility, and different tax regime. And then financial decisions, sources, local versus global capital markets. Where can you source funding for your business, operations or expansion? Is it from the local or global capital market? Like for example, in Nigeria recently, the Central Bank of Nigeria is consolidating banks to be able to be stronger, to be able to satisfy the international business and other, funds requirement by large company. So someone coming to Nigeria may consider one of the local banks based on the cost of borrowing and what have you, or maybe consider international capital markets, debt versus equity. Which one are you going into? You understand? And the risk management, political risks, economic risks, and transactions and translation risks. Transaction is like in the foreign exchange, and translation risks, the conversion risks between the forex, the foreign exchange, and the local currency, and vice versa. And the international human resource management, management of human resource in global context. In global context, managing human resources is another important factor. There are differences in ways we manage, human resources in most of our countries. So key functions or key area of consideration include staffing approaches. Number of MNEs, has or have, different, approaches when it comes to staffing. That is hiring, recruiting, and hiring people in their MNEs operation. For example, some MNEs, adopt ethnocentric strategy, where they populate or they recruit mostly their home nationals or guys in most of their MNEs, subsidiaries in a number of countries. If you check Nigeria, you discover that there are some companies, international companies that have like more than half of the employees from their home countries because they are adopting ethnocentric, strategy. Then there is polycentric strategy, where you hire mostly the host country nationals in your operation. This could not be all related to like local content requirement. The other time we are discussing, we have a lecture, we talk about local content. So this cannot be all related to that. Some countries, they have policies that mandate most of the international business to hire from or to utilize the local resources. So that may make a company to employ most of their workers from the host country. So by so doing, they are adopting polycentric strategy. And then there is geocentric strategy, where where consideration is given to the best talent globally. The company would not mindful of the home or the host country expert, but the best brand. Wherever employee is that can contribute to the company, they can hire him. Like most of the international these ICT giants like Google, you understand, they go for best talent globally. If you go to this kind of company, you see people from different walks of life, from different countries, Indians, Africans, Chinese, Japanese, and everybody, because they are after best talent. Okay? And then number two, expatriate management. How to manage expatriates. Selection and training, cultural adaptation, compensation and repatriation. Compensation is very important. Like for example, if you check most of one of the reason why like Dangote petrol is a little bit expensive because large number of their workforce are expatriate, and these expatriate are being paid in forex. You understand, in relation to labor policies globally. So they are being paid, higher wages and salary. And because of that, it adds to the cost of, refining and production of oil in Dangote refinery. And that makes it, makes the per unit, per liter price of the petrol to be higher. You understand? So compensation and repatriation is another. And then cross-cultural management, managing cultural differences, diversity in organizations, because MNEs, deal with number of people from different countries, especially if you are using geocentric, staffing strategy. You are likely going to have number of people from number of countries. So that will call for a management, strategy on how to manage, this diversity within the organization. Then enhancing communication and collaboration, and then performance management, standardized versus localized evaluation system. The performance management is the evaluation of performance, considering some KPI from the employees to decide the payment, the compensation, and what have you. So sometimes you may use some standardized or localized evaluation system. And then challenges, cultural barrier, legal differences, talent retention is very difficult. Like, for example, most Nigerians who are working outside Nigeria, they have some number of years that they target that they want to work in this organization. Some 5 years, some 10 years, some will say 20 years will come back to Nigeria. So most expatriates, this is how they plan. So MNEs, face this challenge in managing this. Then key issues are differences in accounting standard. Also, there are some issues like challenges in international M&E operation, differences in accounting standard. Some countries, they adopt international financial reporting standard. Is a standard that is adopted by more than 140 countries in the world. And there are some local, standards that people, use in their accounting system. You understand? IFRS for the international and GAAP for the generally accepted accounting principles. So it all depends on which one you are going for. The need for standardization and comparability. Standardization, across your subsidiaries, across your branches in most of the country, and using maybe other methods. And then currency translation, combating foreign subsidiary financial statement methods, current rate method, temporal methods. There are two methods that they use to do currency translation. And then transfer pricing, pricing of transaction between subsidiary, implication tasks, optimization, regulatory scrutiny. And then consolidation of financial statement, combining financial report of global subsidiary, eliminating intercompany transactions. The challenges, regulatory differences, exchange rate volatility, and compliance complexity. And then contemporary issues in M&E strategy. There are some recent, issues that, M&Es, are dealing with. For example, digital globalization and platform economics. The world is becoming a global village. All countries are coming together because of globalization. That is development in communication, ICT, and good policies, at global level that are making it easier for countries to transact, without much barriers that we are used to have before. And then sustainability and environmental, social, and government consideration. There are current issues because of climate, issues. There are policies at the global level that are trying to mandate business to strictly adhere to some practices that will minimize the environmental, the pollution and what have you, that are contributing to greenhouse emission, that are also, contributing to climate issues. You understand? Then geopolitical tensions and trade wars. Like, for example, the war that is happening right now between Iran and US and Israel, and even some other countries are joining in. Like, for example, I just had Yemen join the war. So this, like, for example, there are some difficulty passing through the Strait of Hormuz, that, passage, and that is causing a lot of issues. Even here, we are feeling the impact. For example, the price of oil is now 1,300 and something naira per liter in Nigeria, which was very, very low before, you understand. And then localization versus the globalization trend. And then there are some agitations to, the counter the speed and, the rate at which globalization is happening, globally. There are some movements, some agitation and what have you, policies that are, reducing the level of the, globalizations. And these are also, issues that are affecting national, strategies and what have you. Eh, so I think this is all we can take. Strategic management of MNE is inherently complex, requiring integration of global efficiencies, responsiveness to local markets, coordination across geographically dispersed units. Successful M&E is one that can simultaneously compete globally while adapting locally, leveraging resources, capabilities, and knowledge across borders. So this is all we can take. Like I said earlier on, we can reserve our questions. So we meet in our physical class, then we will discuss further on this lecture. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry for my inability to physically come to the class. Thank you.